Hey Jeepers, what's going on? It's Josh, Northwest 99 XJ, or Josh from the Jeep Talk Show. This Jeep, my 99 XJ, has been sitting since August, basically, of last year. It's now February, well, almost March. And for 7 months, this thing has sat, and for a lot of that time, not a lot of work got done. I have done a fair amount of some fairly big projects on this thing, so let's go through them and get to why we're here today. Whole thing started because, well, I've had an exhaust leak on this thing for longer than I can remember. Started off with a header repair. Now this is an APN header, aftermarket header, and it developed an exhaust leak after some motor mounts failed on me. And figured, okay, well, after driving around for way too long with an exhaust leak, it was time to do something about that. So the header got welded, a new manifold gasket got put on, and it just kind of steamrolled from there. Rear main seal was done as well as a valve cover gasket. All the hardware has all been redressed. Did a new thermostat, refreshed the thermostat as well, gave it a fresh coat of paint, new temperature sending unit, new gasket as well. A lot of detail work done throughout the whole process. The thing that has me more nervous than anything for starting this thing up for the first time in 7 months is this project right here. Now, this is a donated throttle body. Thank you, Dean Murray. And it has been bored to 63 millimeters. And even with a nice little custom butterfly valve. Yep, fancy, huh? So my biggest concern is whether or not that butterfly valve is going to do what it's supposed to do. Now, I've had a Powerade throttle body spacer as well, and that got bored to a little over 63 millimeters. So whether or not this whole thing is going to work or not is really what has me more nervous than anything. That, and whether or not everything is torqued to spec. So outside of that, some other minor tinkering, and there's a lot of other stuff that we can go into, but really the reason why we're here today is to start this thing up for the first time in 7 months. So let's see how that goes. So here we are inside the Jeep, and as I turn the ignition on, hey, no bus, all the lights turn on. That's a good sign, wouldn't you say? So, got juice, got fuel. It's kind of old fuel, but should do the trick still. Got oil in it, got coolant, got everything we need. Let's go ahead and start this thing up. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. Might be a firing order issue. Let's give it another shot. Really rough idle and way too high. I don't like that. Give it another shot. It might be just because it hasn't ran in for so long. That was a really weird kind of a sound. So let's give this another shot. Yeah, I don't like that one bit. So the idle is way too high. There's a little bit of a burble in there. I'm not sure what that's all about. But obviously this thing has some issues that we need to resolve. So my best guess, also because of the way it acted when I kind of gave it a little bit of a bump, is that that butterfly valve is allowing too much air to pass through. The idle air control valve is not doing what it's supposed to in keeping the RPMs down. So there's also a very rich smell of gasoline, kind of to be expected with something that hasn't started in quite so long. So I guess it might be back to the drawing board of sorts. My biggest concern through the whole process was whether or not that butterfly valve was going to seal up enough against the walls of the throttle body in order to provide an even, smooth idle. My concerns, I guess, are valid. So what that's going to mean is that I have to redesign the butterfly valve and make one that's probably a little bit bigger in diameter to get that thing to seat a little more properly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get out of the Jeep and I'm going to start this thing with the door open because the fumes are pretty strong in here. And I'm going to take a look on the engine compartment side as to what we have going on. So we'll be right back. Okay, door's open so we aren't suffocating ourselves or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and reach in and start this thing up one more time. And this way, with me outside the vehicle now, I can go ahead and see, have a better idea of what's going on at the throttle body. way too high of an idle.
Oh, it's so loud.
And we got some smoke and stuff. That's to be expected. A lot of grease and everything burning off of the manifold that hasn't seen any heat in quite some time. But that high idle is what has me very, very worried. Stay tuned. Okay, so I figured out that one of the biggest issues was that the firing order was slightly off. I had it set the last two mixed up. So the 1, 3, 6, 5, 2, 4, or whatever, I had the last two mixed up. So I corrected that, and it smoothed out the idle pretty well. The issue is that now when I start it up, again, the idle is high, even higher now. It basically wants to redline as soon as I start it up. Check it out. Yeah, the belt needs to be tightened up too, but that's the least of my concerns at this point. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Well, hey, we're back here in the studio, and I figured it'd be easier to kind of go through some of my findings and kind of what's going to happen from this point on with what you guys just saw. So, what I determined through some advice and some help of some other people, through some web searching and through some exploratory surgery of sorts, is I found that I'm pretty sure I have found that the manifold gasket is leaking a little bit. Now, this is the main reason for that is that when I put on the manifold or the header. It didn't quite seat properly onto the dowels, or at least that's what I'm assuming. Now, it could be there's a little bit of debris in the recesses in the manifold itself that is preventing it from seating on the dowels completely. It could just be a misalignment thing. It could just be user error. I don't know. Now, this isn't my first rodeo. I've done this several times before, and I'd gone through all the steps. You know, I'd really double, triple checked to make sure that the manifold was seated on the dowels properly. I thought it was. Chances are things shifted a little bit when I was torquing on a bolt or something. I don't know. Any number of things could have happened. So the bottom line is I got in there with a set of feeler gauges. I was able to get an 016 feeler gauge up in between the header itself and the gasket. So in a couple of spots. So that leads me to believe that the bottom end of it is kicked out just slightly. Now, looking dead on from the front of the vehicle onto it, it looks like it's seated properly. Looking on the top as well, it looks like it's seated properly. That's kind of, the extent of my visual inspection after the fact. And of course, that while I was doing the whole process as well. So it seems that that's where the problem lies. And one of the other indicative things that kind of points to that direction is in the video earlier, you see me put my hand over the top of the throttle body itself, essentially eliminating any air into the engine. And you could kind of hear it kind of dip down a little bit. The RPMs dip down and kind of the engine bog a little bit. But it kept running and the idle really didn't change all that much. Basically, what that means is that the engine is still getting air otherwise. So other than through the throttle body, still getting fuel, still pulling a little bit of air through that leak, and that's probably what's going on. So I will let you guys know what happens after the installation or the removal and reinstallation, as it were. So yay, that's so much fun because I can't tell you just how much I love those bottom two header bolts. Anyways, stay tuned. Catch you later.